right, so let's take a look at 63. Here we have to graph, so we want to figure out what our vertex is. How can I find my vertex when it's in standard form? Negative b over 2a, perfect. So negative b over 2a, where my coefficients are a, b, and c. So this would be negative 6 over 2 times 1. Negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So the first number in my vertex is negative 3. I can look at my answer choices and already cross out B and A. So I'm only left with C and D. How can I find the K or the Y in my vertex? Perfect. Let's plug it in. So I'm plugging in negative 3 into all my x's. So negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 2 would be 9 minus 18 plus 2. So negative 9 plus 2 would be negative 7. So negative 7 would be the y, which would match which answer choice? C. All right, let's look at 64. We have to find the minimum or maximum value of the function, describe the domain, range, and where the function's increasing and decreasing. Just looking at my function here, do I know if it's going to open up or open down? Down. How did we know that? Because it has a negative a. So is the vertex at the maximum or minimum? It's at the maximum. So I can cross out the two that say minimum. Now I need to figure out my maximum value. Well, the maximum, whether it's a max or min, is the y value. What would my vertex be here? Perfect. This is kind of like it's written in vertex form. What we're adding inside is nothing. I don't have parentheses, so I'm not adding anything inside. And what I'm adding outside is 2, so 0, 2. So what's my y? Positive 2 or negative 2? Positive 2. So my answer choice would be A. I have a maximum value at 2. I don't even need to read the rest of it because I'm already confident that it's a maximum and it's at my y, which is 2. If your graph's going down, then the range goes to negative infinity. So like it's always at your y, so our y is 2. So y would be less than or equal to 2 because it's going down, so it's less than 2. If it was going up, it would be greater than. So this would be how we find the range. All right, let's look at 66. We have to graph the function, label the x-intercepts, vertex, and axis of symmetry. When it's in intercept form, what are my x-intercepts? 6 and 2, we just change the sign of the two numbers inside the parentheses, so 6 and 2. So looking at all my answer choices, I want to see which graph crosses at 6 and 2. So it's not C, it's not B,
It's A.
But it could be A or it could be D. They both cross at 6 and 2. Is my graph going to open up or open down here? How do we know that it's going to open up? Because it's positive. There's no negative outside. So we know it's going to open up. So between A and D, which one is it going to be? A, the one that opens up. All right, 67 we did on the last page. So just applying the transformations one at a time. To graph the function, we'll graph 68. What is my vertex here? Perfect, 4, 2. So go to the right 4, up 2. Is my graph going to open up or down? Up. So my graph would look something like this. To find what it looks like more precisely, how could I find another point? Plug in a number. Plug in something close to the x in our vertex. For 69, what are my x-intercepts? Perfect. So 4 and negative 2. For the x-intercepts, you just change the sign of the numbers inside the parenthesis. Does my graph here open up or open down? Down, because it has a -1 outside, so we know it's going to open down. All right, let's look at 70. So here I have to solve the equation. If I have an x squared and an x, how am I going to solve? Factoring. I'm going to factor. Before I factor here, what do I want to do? Divide what? Divide everything by -1. We like it when our leading coefficient is a +1. So if we can take out a GCF and make it a +1, do that first. So change the sign of everything. So this would be x squared minus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now we can factor. What are two factors of 4 that add to -4? -2 and -2. So this would be x minus 2 and x minus 2. So what does x equal? 2 and 2. So x equals 2 is my answer. What's another way I could have solved this one? We could always just look at our answer choices and plug it into the x's and see what makes sense. So you could always kind of use the answer choices to your advantage and work backwards. If you're absolutely stuck and don't know how to factor, just, I don't know, get stuck. Just take the answer choices and plug them in. It's a little bit more work doing it that way because you would have to check all the answer choices, but it'll help if you are stuck. All right, 71. What should I do first? Move them to one side. I'm going to add the 3x squared to the right side to make it a positive 3x squared. So I get 0 is equal to 3x squared plus 12x plus 12. What should I do next? Perfect. Take out the GCF. Always take out the GCF if you have one. So x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now, what are two factors of 4 that add to 4? 2 and 2. So I have x plus 2 and x plus 2 equals 0. So what does x equal? -2. And the next one, I only have an x squared, so how could I solve this? Square root both sides. So I get x is equal to, awesome, plus or minus 8. Anytime you take the square root of both sides, you need the plus or minus. For 73, what could I do to solve? Square root both sides. You cannot distribute the squared. To get rid of the squared, you have to square root, or you could write it twice and FOIL it, but that would just be a lot more work. So square root both sides. So x plus 3 is equal to, what's the square root of -49? Just 7i? Plus or minus 7i. We need that plus or minus because we took the square root of both sides. If I have an I in my answer, what does that tell me about my solution? There's no real solution because I would be imaginary. So my answer would be D. So if you get an I under the, or negative under the square root, it turns into an I and it makes it imaginary, not a real solution. 74. How would I solve for P? Awesome. Factor by taking out the GCF. So we want to take out the P. We've seen this question so many times. It always stumps us. Take out the P. What would I do next? Set them both equal to 0. P equals 0 and P minus 5 equals 0. So P equals 0 is an answer. For the other one, we'd add 5 to both sides. So P is equal to 5. So that would be answer choice A. All right, for 75, what should I do to solve? Move the 81, so I'd subtract 81 to the other side. So x squared is equal to negative 81. What would I square root it? So x is equal to?
Plus or minus 9i.
Awesome, plus or minus 9i. All right, 76. What should I do first? Move the 25 over. So this would be x squared plus 4x minus 21.
Then you get the 7 and negative 3.
Perfect. Two factors of negative 21 that add to 4 would be 7 and negative 3.
Oh, yeah.
So x plus 7 and x minus 3. So what does x equal?
X equals negative 7.
X equals negative 7 and x equals 3. Perfect. So answer choice B.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's look at 77. What should I do first? Add the 5. So this would be x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to 0. Ooh, plus 30. Do I have two factors of 30 that add to 10? No. So what happens if it doesn't factor? Have to do the quadratic. So this would be A, B, and C. Anybody remember our quadratic formula?
Yes.
Awesome. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2x. So we plug everything in. Negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 30 over 2a, which a is 1. So 2 times 1. So negative 10 plus or minus, this would be 100 minus 4 times 30 would be 120 over 2. So negative 10 plus or minus, this would be negative 20 over 2. And now we can simplify, but looking at our answer choices, what happens when I have a negative inside the square root? It becomes an I. Which one of our answer choices has an I in it? A. Only A. So we can stop. And that's our answer. Because there's an I in it, it's going to be the only answer choice with an I. We can keep simplifying by simplifying the square root of 20. What are two factors of 20? 4 and 5. Two factors of 4 would be 2 and 2. So I circle my group of 2's. That comes to the outside. And I'm left with 5 on the inside. And then I can divide everything here by 2. Divide all the whole numbers by 2. So it'd be negative 5 plus or minus I square root 5 over 1, which would just be this, which matches answer choice A. All right, let's look at 80. What can I do to solve 80? I could plug in the answer choices. That would work. Another way we could do it would be simplifying it by foiling everything out, which may not be like the quickest way, but if you're stuck, don't know what to do, plug in your answer choices. So what I would do is foil this. So we write it as x minus 5 times x minus 5, since it's squared. We write it twice. So this would be x squared minus 5x minus 5x plus 25. I'm going to FOIL these two out also, so that turns into negative x squared minus x plus 9x plus 9 minus 28. Now we can combine our like terms. So I'm going to start with like terms on the same side. So this would be x squared minus 10x plus 21 is equal to negative x squared plus 8x minus 19. Now we want to move everything to one side. So I'm going to add the x squared, subtract 8x, and add the 19. So move everything to the left. So I get 2x squared minus 18x plus 40 is equal to 0. What can I do next? Divide everything by 2. Take out the GCF. So x squared minus 9x plus 20 is equal to 0. And now we can factor. What are two factors of 20 that add to negative 9? Negative 5 and negative 4, so x minus 5 and x minus 4, which would mean x is equal to what? And 4. So x is equal to 5 and 4, which would be C. All right, 81 and 82 are more systems of equations, which we've done before. 83 is the same. For 84 and 85, what does it mean when it says find the zeros? Find the x's. We're solving. Just like we did in the last one we did. We would just change the f of x to be 0 or the g of x to be 0 and just solve. So you may have to solve with factoring. You may have to solve by square rooting. Looking at 85, what should I do first to solve here? So I have 0 is equal to 3x squared plus 42. Do I have to factor here? Do I have an x squared and an x? No, I don't have an x. Do I have any like terms? Or greatest common factors? I can divide everything by 3, so that's a good start. So I have 0 is equal to x squared plus 14. Awesome. Since we only have one x, we want to get that all by itself. So I can move the 14 to the other side and square root it. So negative 14 is equal to x squared. Now to get rid of the squared, we square root both sides. So x is equal to what? Plus or minus. Can I take the square root of 14? No, but I can take that negative out and turn it into an I. So it'd be I square root 14. So plus or minus I square root 14 would be answer choice A. 86, let's simplify the square root. What should I do first? Take out the I. So that gets rid of the negative. What's the square root of 16? 4. So I have 2i and 4. Now on the outside, what's 2i times 4? 8i. So that would be B. For 87, we have to find the value of x and y that satisfy the equation. So we set the real parts equal to each other, and then the imaginary parts equal to each other. So here I have negative 2x is equal to negative 6. Solve for x, we divide by negative 2. So what does x equal? 3. For the next one, I have negative 40i is equal to 10yi. So I divide both sides by 10i. So the i's cancel. What's negative 40 divided by 10? Negative 4. So y is negative 4 and x is 3. So answer choice A. So looking at 88 through 90. We're just performing the operation and writing the answer in standard form. Standard form, which part comes first? The real number comes first, then the imaginary. So it'd be written like A plus BI. The imaginary part comes second. Remember, we can only add real numbers together, and we can only add imaginary numbers together. So here I'm adding, what's 8 minus 17? Negative 9. And then I can add the imaginary parts together. What's 20i plus 4i? 24i. So that would be answer choice C. 89. We have to distribute. 4i times 9 would be 36i. What's 4i times 9i? 36i squared. What do I do with that I squared? It changes to be a negative 1. So that makes it a negative 36. And now I have to write it in standard form. So what do? Flip them. So negative 36 plus 36i. Don't forget, anytime you have that I squared, it changes to be negative 1. So that would be answer choice B. For 90, you're doing the same thing, just foiling, but also don't forget, if you have an I squared, you got to change it to be negative 1. For 91, we define the value of C. That makes it a perfect square trinomial, then write the expression as the square of a binomial. So for these types of questions, for completing the square, it is b over 2 squared. So we have a, b, and c. So this would be negative 13 over 2 squared. How do I square negative 13 over 2? Perfect. We square the top and we square the bottom. So 13 squared is 169, and 2 squared would be 4. So we can cross out C and D. And then when we plug it in to the square of a binomial, do you think it'll be plus or minus? Minus, because it's a negative 13 over 2. So that would be answer choice B. So just make sure you remember your formula for this type of question. B over 2 squared. And last one we're going to look at today is to find the discriminant. The discriminant is what's under the square root in the quadratic formula. So it's just perfect, b squared minus 4ac. So it's everything that's under the square root. So this would be a, b, and c. So 2 squared minus 4 times 5 times 5 would be 4 minus 100. So negative 96. So I can cross out C and B. If my discriminant's negative, what type of solutions do I have? 2 imaginary. So as a reminder, if our discriminant is positive, we have 2 real solutions. If our discriminant is 0, we have 1 real solution. And if our discriminant is a negative number, then we have no real solutions or 2 imaginary solutions.